So the first question we got, I also asked the crew members and like the community. So some people don't really know what OlliOlli World exactly is. So can you briefly explain what kind of game it is?
Okay, in gameplay terms, it's an action platformer. It's all about traversal, but you're traversing this complex kind of abstract world on a skateboard. So at one level, it's about getting from A to B. Beyond that, it's about getting from A to B, looking as cool and stylish as you possibly can while nailing tons of tricks along the way. Thematically, though, so outside of gameplay, it's kind of a love letter to skateboarding. It's an homage to our favorite brands, like cool tricks, and kind of like the whole vibe, I guess, of like growing up and having friends who skateboarded.
Yeah, I really got catapulted back to my youth while I was playing this, so it really works. I also checked out the previous OlliOlli games, and needless to say, this one looks drastically different. Do you consider this still as like a sequel in a franchise, or should we name this more like a reboot of the idea?
Simon, you were nodding. I've got things to say, but do you want to come in on that?
I think you're right. It is a reboot. I think like with everything that we did with OlliOlli 1 and 2, we were very young developers, young, dumb, and full of crazy ideas that we, weren't sure whether we'd be able to deliver on. And I think OlliOlli World represents not only everything that we were never able to do in the first two games, whether it was a restriction of team size, time, or budget, but it's also a representation of everything that subsequently has changed in our lives as creatives, and the OlliOlli, making the game OlliOlli got John and I back into skateboarding quite heavily. Yeah, John specifically, and I think OlliOlli World is that, like you said, is that love letter to skateboarding. That's like, thank you skateboarding, and then also thank you OlliOlli for getting us back into skateboarding. How about we merge those two beautiful things into something that's bigger than the sum of its parts? And yeah, like, what would OlliOlli be if they're like the two other games? Like, yeah, they existed, but like, if just anything was possible, and OlliOlli World is very much the sort of no holds barred, like what we do. There's nothing that we're sat here now going like, fundamentally, I really wish we'd done this. Like, we've really like, and there's so much you've not seen, like at this stage as well, that we're like so amped to talk about, like that's in the game, that's not in the demo. There's just so much to it. I don't know, John.
Yeah. I mean, just to vibe on something Simon said there. I always used to be envious of other indie devs who'd launch their games, and you'd be like, "Oh, you must have to cut or whatever." And they're like, "No, I made the game I wanted to make." And I feel like we've always, not that we haven't made the games we wanted to make, but it's always been a compromise, right? Whereas I actually feel like with OlliOlli World, we've made the best version of the game that we could make. Like, I'm so pleased with the work everyone's done and the amount of love that all the team put into the project. I'm really happy with kind of what we're making. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I agree. The new style really sucks you in, and I like how crazy it all gets. Like, it reminded me sometimes of TV shows like Adventure Time. I don't know if there are some inspirations you took from television shows, or perhaps when creating those crazy characters, are those based on people maybe even people working on the game?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think there's definitely an element of people picked Adventure Time. I don't know if it's just the way the faces work, or that people are kind of there's a lot of grounded stuff in there. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely other influences, like Midnight Gospel and like Over the Garden Wall, and even like kids shows, like some of the new wave of like Nickelodeon stuff, like Pinky Malinky and Gumball and things like that, where it's just like, sometimes it's just fucking weird, but it kind of works and it's okay. And I think for us, it's important. Like, it's important that the world is cool and interesting and like odd, and you want to explore it. Like, exploring the world is kind of one of the pillars of this new game. But also it's like important because the levels architecture is so crazy anyway, right? Some of them just huge diagonal falls and they're massive. And like if you try to make a city street that looked like that, it just wouldn't look like a city anymore. So having this kind of like making Radlandia this kind of crazy, slightly fantastical place actually gives us an appropriate amount of freedom to build the kind of crazy architecture we need for the levels.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But so 1 and 2, OlliOlli 1 and 2 were really known for the natural flow, the way the tricks move from one another to the other. Now in the demo, I also experienced this same flow, and I think that was one of the game's best moments once you hit that flow and you just go from one obstacle to another one. But the style really changed, I think, the gameplay. Was it hard for the team to keep that flow going in the new visual style? Did you really need to start all over, or were there elements that you could reintegrate?
I'm sure Sai has things on this as well. I'm going to go first on this one. So I think one thing I'm really glad we did, we did a lot of prototyping on this game. We tried a lot of new features, and we threw a bunch of stuff out. And really, that was kind of the litmus test of whether something made it into the game. Was like, can we put this thing in, and does it still retain that core of OlliOlli, which is like everything kind of feels intuitive. It's almost, it's not a rhythm game. But when you're playing a level really well, it almost feels like a rhythm game. Like everything every action is naturally follows from the last one. And so with everything we added, if that's like the court pipes that take you back the other way or split paths or whatever, all of those things needed to work in that. It still needed to as you say, maintain that flow. And I think something we've tried to do in this one in terms of being more welcoming to new players is a lot of the new mechanics we've added, like the wall rides, like grabs, they're not high-level mechanics. They're not like a Twitch mechanic that you can only do if you've mastered the other 90% of things that are already in the game. A lot of them are new, almost like entry-level things you can do in Traversal that hopefully just feel quite simple and good. What we build them up to by the end of the game may get more complicated, but they're kind of easy to onboard yourself with, and hopefully they make you feel like a badass just doing them.
I think for me, the big thing that I know that I bugged John about as far as getting, the flow. Funnily enough, I remember many years ago, we were in Amsterdam on a work trip before OlliOlli World was even a prototype, and John and I were absolutely hooked on
Amsterdam. We were absolutely hooked on this sentence. Where's he going?
Where was it? Tiny Wing.
Tiny Wing.
Yeah. Tiny Wing was just this super simple mobile game made by a single dude. I don't know if you remember it, but it had this wonderful simplicity of flow, right? Like you're a little bird that's just doing your hills are doing this, and you're just jumping, and there's that kind of weightlessness feeling while you're in the air, and then there's the drop, and then there's the sort of compression feeling, and it's something that we never managed to get into OlliOlli 2 because of the way that we made the game and the constraints of the technology that we had at the time. But it's something that I always wanted from OlliOlli. If we ever made another OlliOlli, I always said to John, I want to be able to do bigger airs. I want to be able to have sections that feel like roller coastery, that feel like I'm, that feel even bigger than we've ever done before. So I think for players coming back to the series, they'll be hyped by the fact that there's not just some really hardcore mastery things, new things for them to get their head around tricks wise and input wise, but also some tricky ass levels later on in the game. But there's also just these moments where you can really feel like a badass. You really shine. You're massive air, huge wall ride, these just sort of big cinematic moments. And when that's paired with, when that feels great as a grey box, when we're all sat there really enjoying how those things come together, we've absolutely locked in on our the physics and the speed of the game, and it took a long time to get to that point. We had what OlliOlli 2 felt like, and this we knew it needed to feel differently, but there was a lot of not arguments, but just a lot of discussion about how it needed to feel. And once we closed in on that and then added the art, it just felt epic. There's these moments and you're just like, oh God, yes. And you know, like that's it. We want people to play it and be like, oh man, did you see that? That was sick. And because that's the best part of skateboarding, right? When you do something awesome and you're like, oh man, I hope someone saw that, because that's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely in early development, that thing where someone would tweak the values. They'd make it a level and they'd tweak the values, and the killer would be like, oh, that feels fucking great. And then there's that whole moment where you're like, this will mean you have to break. We've broken all of the other levels now.
But it's like, yeah, and it was like, okay, do you know what? That feels amazing. We're all happy with it. So sorry, guys, you're gonna have to go back and rebuild everything that we've done, because everything's about feel, everything's about flow, and I think we've leaned into flow even more with this game than any other game that we've made. Like, it's been something that, you know, when we feel like we're veering off course with something, it's always the big thing, like, yeah, but does it flow? Does it have that rhythm?
Yeah. No, that's good to hear. There was actually a concern from our community when they saw the inclusion of quarter pipes and wall rides. Some were wondering, doesn't that break the flow? Because like in skating, a quarter pipe takes time to land and take off. But it's what you say. While I was playing it, I didn't have the feeling it took me out. It elevated the flow, in my opinion, because you can create more crazy tricks and really go out. I know sometimes which I call my girlfriend, oh my God, come look at this. And it's that, it really works. So it's a really fun game to play. So another big aspect of OlliOlli for me is the music. So there's always some cool music bands to discover, some cool music tracks. Is that something that we will also see returning in OlliOlli World? Of course, in the demo I heard some great music, but will there be like featured artists or like a soundtrack especially curated for OlliOlli World too?
Yeah, definitely. The soundtrack is something that we poured a lot of love into in the first two games. It became a bit of a labour of love for me during OlliOlli 2. There were tracks that needed to get in the game that we couldn't reach out to the people who own the licenses, and we were, you know, making calls late at night before our submission with PlayStation and doing what we could, because this is a game about flow, and part of that is the combination of music that we like to call Swazi music. It's a combination of EDM, sorry, not EDM, IDM, independent dance music, electronica, lo-fi beats. It tends to have like a slightly more jazzy, up-tempo like flavor to it. And in the 5 years that have passed, 6 years that have passed since OlliOlli 2 came out, there's been a ton of artists from all over the world that have caught our attention. A lot of them, funnily enough, from the sort of from France, Belgium. They are, you know, people from Canada. We've had people from all over the place that have caught our eye, and we've worked with some of those guys to bring exclusive tracks to the game that aren't available anywhere else. We've partnered with some artists to give us a few more tracks. There's some like undiscovered talent from Morocco in the game that's like blowing up at the moment. And yeah, if you like the soundtrack in the first two games, there's going to be more music in the sequel in OlliOlli World, and I'd say a more diverse range, but all within the same OlliOlli kind of genre. It's been an absolute like labor of love to find these artists and work with them to bring it into the game, but I hope that it, you know, not only does it bring our game to life, but I hope that it helps them as artists, you know, in their career, and to get more ears onto their amazing music, because our game is without that music, it's not the same experience. So.
No, it's a really interesting one, because like it's not a genre of music that's traditionally like skate video music. Like if you watch skate videos, it's not usually this kind of soundtrack. But I think that loads of people who grew up watching skate videos, or even watch skate videos now, like discover some of their favorite artists from video, like other skaters' video parts. And I think we hope there's still that same element to it, right? That people discover some of their favorite artists just by listening to the OlliOlli soundtrack, even if it's not traditionally like skateboarding music.
Yeah, it's that I think that works so brilliantly together. The music really always has been a big part of the experience, in my opinion. So it's nice to hear that still is like a center point for the game. So that's really cool to hear. Yeah, I'm nearing the end of my questions, but got three more. So yeah, obviously this one has been created by a larger team. There's a lot of more budget, so it seems a lot of more resources. What is the impact of working together with more people? Does that like limit the freedom or grants you more freedom instead?
I'll go first. I mean, it's been really interesting. Like we've been through a philosophical change in the way that we work with teams. For Laser League, our previous game, we were still very heavily involved and guilty of micromanaging kind of the process and being sort of heavily involved in absolutely everything. And we were still learning as a team. We're always learning. We're still learning now. And I think with OlliOlli World, we brought on people who we felt we could hand the vision over to and really create the pillars. Like, this is what we want to achieve, but we want you guys to be creative within this, this sphere. And what we got as a result of that was a game that's far bigger than anything that John or myself could ever build. Like it is the sum of the people who are working on it. Like, our team are remarkable. What they've managed to achieve, during a pandemic with everyone going through their own stuff, to deliver this game on time, on schedule, at a level of quality that we just can't believe is amazing. And that really is a result of us just changing our whole philosophy and trusting people with that vision. And I think so many people are, in one way, shape, or form, like involved with skate culture or enamored with skate culture or affected by it in some way, shape, or form. On the team, we have ex-pro skateboarders. We have people who, used to do like art for, used to do branding or art for skate shops, and this big hot pot of diverse and diverse groups from all over Europe and all over the world, all with this love of skateboarding, making a love letter to skateboarding. And it's come together in such a, I'm trying to think how, like, it's sort of effortlessly sort of blended together. It's been one of the most, like, it's like everyone knew where we were heading towards right from the start, and like now we're like very near the end. It feels like that was always what this game was going to be with this group of people. I know it sounds really like weird, but it's like, yeah. John, I don't know if you got anything.
Like, in short, I'm so proud of the team that we have and the people who are working on it. Like, making games is always like stressful to some degree, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's been plain sailing, guys, because a lot of people worked really, really hard to make it where it is. But like, I don't feel like there is there's no weak area on our team. Like, the sound design people have killed it, and like narrative, art, design, everything has just been super good. And I feel like people have, weirdly, at a point where we're all separated and we're in lockdown, people have like really come together and communicated and shared ideas across the project. And I think it shows. Like, it's really interesting how like random conversation will happen here about a character or a challenge or something, and you'll just think, that's never going in the game. Like you were saying, a bigger team, does it mean it's more restrictive? I feel like random conversations happen and you think, yeah, that's cool, that'll never happen, and then like 2 weeks later it happened because someone put it in. It's like, that kind of stuff is really cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That also answered like my last question. So I would like to end by giving you some time to address the people who are waiting for OlliOlli World to play. Do you have a message for them? Perhaps even a small tease? I don't know.
Oh, John.
Okay, I got 2 things. One is, like, if you're a fan of the series and you're waiting for the next game, like, thank you A, so much for playing the previous ones, and B, for tweeting or emailing or shouting about like, when are we going to get a third one, and like, will you do another one? Because you never know if people want it, right? And it'd be awesome that, like, in the big gap that we've taken between the previous games, that so many people have asked for it, because it's one of the things that brought us around to being like, you know what, we should do another one of those, and we should do it kind of bigger and better and shinier than the previous ones. And I hope that if you played the previous ones and you're coming back to this, I know the stats for how far people got in OlliOlli 2. I hope if you come back to this one, I hope you get way further into the game, and I hope you get to see all of the wonderful work that all of the really talented and clever people who worked on this have put into it all the way through the adventure. And ultimately, I hope you visit to Radlandia, puts a smile on your face, and like you meet some cool people and explore this cool world we've created, and have a great time doing it.
Yeah, my one would be, and this is just based off feedback we had from some people who played the previous games. If you're playing on a Switch, on a train, just make sure you keep looking up every time the train stops. We had lots of people who were so addicted to the last games that they would just like, oh shit, like I missed my stop. So just enjoy Radlandia. Like, enjoy a world that we created when, you know, we were all going through so much turmoil, that is like everywhere that we'd all want to be right now. It's colourful, it's beautiful, it's weird, it's loving, and it's safe. And yeah, OlliOlli World is a beautiful place to go and spend some time. So go hang out. Hopefully we'll see you on something I can't talk about yet. But yeah, there's some more features to come. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time, guys. It was really, really nice. Nice talking to you.
Thank you, Landerman.
Cheers, Thanks very much.